Hey everybody, this is Andres from Board Gamify, and today I'm back to do a comparison video between Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak. Both of these games just recently had their first expansions released, so I thought it was a good time to incorporate those expansions, play them some more, and see how those expansions either changed my opinion on the game or changed my ranking of the two against each other. I am intentionally excluding Endless Winter from this, not because I haven't gotten a chance to play it. I've played it a few times now, but I haven't got to play with the expansions yet. So I'll probably do a video on that in the future once that game comes out. But all three of those games oftentimes get compared against each other because they have similar mechanics with the deck building and worker placement. So just to give some background, I did get to play Dune Imperium first, and I really enjoyed it when it came out. You know, I had a lot of hype around it because of that incorporation of deck building and worker placement. But I just thought it was a really good game overall. It blended the deck building, worker placement, track movement, combat. It blended those all really well together, and I just really enjoyed the game. But it slowly did kind of fall off, just wasn't hitting the table as often in my play group. And then I got a chance to play Lost Ruins of Arnak, and I really enjoyed Lost Ruins of Arnak. I enjoyed the theme. I liked the idea of getting to explore new areas every game. So each game you weren't going to know what worker placement spots were going to be available. I liked the research track and having to balance the movement of two tokens up that track. And at the time, I probably couldn't tell you why I enjoyed Lost Ruins of Arnak more. But now that I've gotten a chance to play them more and with the expansions, I think a lot of it had to do with Lost Ruins of Arnak just being a bit of an easier game to play. It wasn't as tight as Dune Imperium is. In Lost Ruins of Arnak, the resources aren't necessarily easy to get, but they're by no means hard. Because there's so many ways to get them. You can get them by exploring new areas, placing your workers on areas, cards that you've purchased, moving up the research track, gaining assistance and activating their abilities. So you never feel, even if somebody goes to a spot that you wanted to gain some resource, you never feel like you're just out that round, that you have to like, okay, well, how am I going to get it next round? There's probably 2-3 other ways to get it, especially since there's the upgrade mechanic where you can take a resource and upgrade it to a different type. So I never really felt that tension of not being able to do something I wanted. I just had my plan and I found a way to do it. Even if it was slightly less efficient than I had planned, I was usually getting to do everything I wanted every round. Whereas with Dune Imperium, it's a lot tighter. And I do enjoy tighter games. So that's probably why at the time I couldn't have told you why I was enjoying this more over the other. But I think these expansions helped highlight what was doing that. So before I get into that, let me touch a bit on the expansions. So Expedition Leaders, which I just did a review for, I'll go ahead and include a link for that, was advertised as including asymmetric powers for each player, which really made me think, oh, this is going to be really cool because each player will get to play the game differently and have a different path towards victory in the game. And they do each get their own unique powers. They even each get their own starting deck, and all of that stuff is really great. But you are essentially still playing the same game. It's just more Lost Ruins of Arnak. You're still exploring areas. You're still moving up the research track. You're not playing the game any differently than you would otherwise. I would even go as far as say some of the player boards that you get with unique powers, you don't even necessarily need to pay attention to. Some of them aren't that impactful. And you still just play the game you would have without them. Whereas Rise of Ix, on the other hand, really changed the game up, in my opinion. The addition of dreadnoughts, technology tiles, the new board, the shipping track, all of that just added so much to the game for me. And it did something that I had never experienced with an expansion before. And I did mention this in my review for this as well, so I'll include a link for that. But it improved upon things that I didn't even necessarily think were lacking in the base game. And I think that's what probably led to my move towards Lost Ruins of Arnak before the expansions came out. And what I mean by that is, let's say like the Dreadnoughts, for example. In Dune Imperium, you're doing battle in conflicts every round. So you have to put troops out to try and win that conflict. But win or lose, all of those troops are leaving. So if you were really heavily invested in a conflict, whether you won or lost, all of those were getting removed and you were starting from scratch the next round. The Dreadnought gives you this persistent troop that will at least let you have some amount of presence in the next round for the next conflict. And I really enjoyed that. Like I said, at the time I didn't even necessarily think that was a problem, but that was definitely a big improvement. The technology tiles, another big improvement. They give you either resources or abilities or some type of like static effect that is consistent every round after you buy it. So you're not dependent just on the random cards you're drawing from your deck. You always have that ability there for you. So another big upgrade, adding consistency. Then they added the shipping track. Now, the mechanisms around the shipping track are just cool in themselves. Moving up that track and then deciding when to pull it back to gain all of those resources. But one thing I think it did was made Solari, the resource in the game, more contested. Whereas in the base game, it wasn't really that contested. The yellow spot you could go to either just gain Solari straight up or trade in Spice to gain a ton of Solari. You could gain 6, 8, 12 Solari just with one action. So it didn't make that spot very contested, because once a player went there and got a ton of Solari, they likely weren't going back there for another round, 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds. So players would just kind of rotate through that spot as they needed. Now with the shipping track covering that up and including it as one of the levels in the shipping track, it makes it so much more contested, because even if somebody else doesn't necessarily need Solari, they're still going to go to that shipping track spot because of everything else that's offered. You can put out troops, you can get discounts on technology tiles, you can move up on the influence tracks. So you're not just competing for the Solari, you're competing against everyone else who wants all of those other things as well. So it tightened up that aspect of the game. So I think all of those things combined, maybe if it was even subconsciously for me at the time, that were kind of driving me away from Dune Imperium, it just fixed all of those things. And it made me like Dune Imperium so much more and really pushed it over the top for me. And that's not to say I don't enjoy Lost Ruins of Arnak anymore. I think it's still a great game. If anyone ever wants to play it, I'll gladly play it with them. But if the choice was up to me and I had the option of the two, I'm probably going to choose Dune Imperium. The expansion was just fantastic. So yeah, that's my thoughts. The expansions swapped my rankings of these. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, how these expansions affected the games for you, or just how you rank these games against each other in general. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'll talk to you guys next time.